third ever Google Hangout after the success of the Clint Hill Hangout and the Charlie Austin Hangout. We've now been joined by Nedum Onuoha here at the Harlington Training Ground. Thanks very much to Alan Clough, who's joining us from Norway, Heather Tull, who's joining us from Oxford, and our American friend, John Michael Ryan. Thanks very much, Alan, Heather, and John. And firstly, Nedum, thanks very much for joining us. I know you just finished a training session and a lovely lunch, I noted as well. Good training session today?
Yeah, it was all right. It was all right. But before I go any further, I've got to say one thing to these.
Okay.
The guests here. It's Nedum, not Nedum.
Nedum.
It's Nedum.
I tell you what, 2.5 years, and he's now pulled me up on it while we're doing a live hangout.
I've got to do it in front of people. So
exactly. He could have done it when I first met him and said, "Hello, Nedum." No, actually, it's Nedum. He waits, and then when we're streaming live, I like that.
Yep, it's the best way to be.
Remember we discussed don't go off script. Remember we discussed that?
Sorry.
Okay. Right, we'll start with Alan. Over to you, Alan. What's your question for Nedum?
My question, first of all, hi Nedum, nice to meet you.
Hey.
First of all, how do you view our chances in the playoff?
I personally think we've got a very good chance. I still believe we have the best squad in the Championship, and although we haven't gone up automatically, I do genuinely believe that we will be in the Premiership next season. And provided things go away and everyone works out, then I think we'll do it.
How big a challenge has the injuries been? Obviously, yourself, you missed pretty much a couple of months of the season. You made a fleeting return at Reading for 45 minutes.
Just a cameo.
Yeah, just a cameo. But you yourself missed a couple of months. Obviously, you can go through the squad. How damaging has that been?
I think it's been hard at certain times, especially I think it was around Christmas time where one or two people who were quite important in the side would get injured, say like a Jermaine Genius. You know, he fought his way to get into the side, and he brings a lot of energy into the midfield. And when people are dropping out 1 week and say they might not be available for the next week, then you have to change the side. And I think the longer you can have a settled side, the better the performances will be.
Okay, what about yourself, Alan? Are you confident going into the playoffs?
Not at all. I've been taking.
Why not? Why not?
No, come on.
Can we get someone else? Can we get someone else?
No, I got to explain it to you. I've been having a long look on statistic of the playoff winners for the last 20 years, and everything that is similar with those winners is that they had very good momentum leading up to the playoffs. Have you been talking about that in training sessions, Nedum?
I think the managers said it a few times going into the last few games of the season. You know, you need to be playing well and winning some games. So I think that's the momentum. But then, as soon as it's playoff time, it's a knockout competition essentially. So you know, it does. I'm sure statistically it would suggest that it has made a difference. But I think this year you've not really seen many teams that have come from, say, the bottom half of the table and they've won 10 games on the bounce and ended up in the playoffs. There was a chance when that was going to be Wigan a few months ago. But they've fallen off as well, so no, there's nothing really to fear statistically anyway.
Okay, thanks for that, Alan. Heather, over to you in Oxford.
Hiya. First question from me is, obviously, most fans will know that, surprisingly, you're probably one of the quickest players. If the first team squad were to have a race over 200 metres, who would come first, second and third? Who would come last?
This is interesting that you said 200. If you would have said 100, it might have been a different result. I think over 200 in last place, I would expect to see Rob Green. He doesn't move very well. I think he'd just about finish it if you gave him about an hour. As far as to finish first, second, third, I think I'd do well. Armand Traore would do well because he's got a bit of endurance as well. And
Matty Phillips?
I would say Matty Phillips, but then I'd also say Jermaine Genius because he's got quite a bit of speed endurance as well. Matty Phillips would probably be more involved in the 100, whereas Jermaine would kick in late throws when everybody's flagging.
Yeah. No, I was going to go. Yeah. I was going to go.
I like your headphones, by the way.
What was that?
I like your headphones, by the way.
Oh,
very nice.
cheers.
Got those ones.
No, they're good.
Yeah, very good.
Heather, what was your first, second, and third?
First would have been Nedum, second Matty Phillips, I thought, and then third, it was going to be between Junior and Armand. So, and then things aren't last. I put Dunny or Hughes last, but
no.
Green. I didn't even think about him.
How could you miss him? He's massive.
So you're saying it definitely wouldn't be Richard Dunn?
I think Richard would give it his all. That's all I'm going to say on that one. He'd definitely give it his all, but he wouldn't necessarily be getting the medal at the end of it.
Interestingly, I did notice Heather picked a 1, 2, and 3, whereas Nedum chose not to.
Well, you know, it doesn't really matter. You know, everyone's racing, you know, just for the experience and stuff. You know, I wouldn't necessarily want to say I'm going to take a medal from someone, but if it was available, yeah, I'd take that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Heather. Over to you, John. What's your question for Nedum?
Hello. My question is, are you happy with your choice to pursue football as a career?
Yeah, I think I am. And to jump way ahead now, I think one of the good things about it as a career is the fact that it finishes, let's say, 35 years old, so you can go and do something else after you've played football. It's not as if this is what you have to do for the next 40 years. And also, when I was in school and stuff, I'd do well academically, but I never really knew what I actually wanted to do. But it just so happened that football started very early for me. I made my debut when I was 17. So essentially, the decision to find a career basically looked after itself from a very young age. As I say, by the time I retire, I'll probably be doing something else. You know, maybe you might see me in a coffee shop, so you know.
You wouldn't want to stay in football?
Me personally, no. I think everyone that turns professional, I think they love the game. Like, I do really, really love the game, but I don't really like some of the things that then become associated with professional football. So personally, as I say, unless I go right down to grassroots, then no, I don't think you'd see me involved in football again.
I think you're the only footballer I've ever heard who's described it as a good thing that it ends at around 35.
You get a chance to do something else for a while, you know. I might turn into a house husband, who knows that.
Okay, back to you, Alan. What's your next question for Nedum, please?
Well, there's been some talk on which centre-back combination works the best. Who do you feel more comfortable playing with? Clint Hill or Richard Dunn, and why?
More comfortable. I don't know. I think both of them, just to name those two, because I played Ryan Hughes against Leicester and I really enjoyed that as well. But I think they've both got different traits. Like, I've played with Richard for a long time. Like, when I first started to play for Manchester City, he was the one that was playing alongside me, even though I was at right back. So I've got great memories of him. And basically, when I was growing up, my game had to be based around the way that he played. So I'd probably say I'm more used to playing with Richard, but then playing with Clint's just as good, because basically the whole time I've been here, he's more or less played every single game. So you have to adapt to play the way that he plays. So, you know, I wouldn't say on any given day, whoever if I get selected first off, that's the first thing. Then yeah, it doesn't really make any difference to me, because they're both top quality players, and yeah, I really enjoy it either way.
Owing to injuries, it's constantly changing. Really. Not only the pairing in the centre, but across the back four, it's constantly changed. That must make things difficult.
Yeah, it has been difficult at times, but I think one consistent thing is that Richard and Clint, I think, have played 40 games or so, and that shows you that as you get older, you don't have any more fast twitch fibres, so you can't actually get injured. So this is something I'm looking forward to in 10 years' time.
Okay, back to you, Heather. What's your next question for Nedum, please?
Okay, so next question. I mean, in the last couple of games, I mean, against Forest, Leicester, Watford, you've saved quite a few off the line. Thanks for that. And then also, obviously, that goal in the Forest game, that was ridiculous. Would you say that this is kind of two questions, but firstly, would you say that's the best goal you've scored in your career?
Unfortunately, I can't actually say it's the best goal I've scored in my career now. I scored one for Sunderland away at Chelsea when we won 3-0, and I ran through a few players and I kicked it past Peter Cech. And yeah, started off the route, so that was quite a nice goal. But the one against Forest it was good. Looking back as well, because after I score all these 8 times in my entire career, I don't actually watch them back. So, you know, people were telling me it's a good goal, and it felt like a good goal at the time, but, you know, for me, it's just another moment.
Have you watched the Forest goal?
Yeah, it's been thrust in my face a few times, yeah. But, you know, actually, I think it started, there's a goal I scored in the Europa League for Man City, and I was running through on goal one-on-one with the keeper, and I tried to do the Thierry Henry, like, finish into the bottom corner, really clean finesse, and I scuffed it, and he went through the keeper's legs, at 1 mile an hour because he must have been so confused by what a bad strike it was.
You gave him the eyes.
Yeah, well, I gave him the eyes, gave myself the eyes and everything. You just thought, how can a professional footballer kick a ball like this? So since then, I just stopped watching my goals because it actually doesn't feel right. Because I avoided that one so much. I thought it's going to have to be the same for the other ones.
They look better in your head than in the
Yeah. I just remember running through, kicking it really hard in the corner. It's perfect. It's a dream goal.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Heather. And John, what's your next question, please?
Nedum, what do you think has changed the most in the few years that you've been here in the squad? I guess just looking back.
Well, when I first came here, I'll be completely honest with you here. The thing that catches you out the most is the training ground. It's not really as you expect because you signed at the stadium and you came to the training ground and it was quite old. And I think as some people said, it's been exactly the same for 20 years. So over the 2 years I've been here, that has changed and it's a better place to come to. It's a better environment, people are more professional, the standards are higher in terms of, say, gym equipment, pitches, kits, the works, because at the start it wasn't really where it should have been, especially considering it's a Premier League outfit, so that's changed. And as a consequence, you're bringing in better players who, want to work harder and they've got different mentality, like they've got a winning mentality, not just for, say, 3 points on a Saturday, they've got a mentality for trying to win Premier Leagues, trying to win cup competitions and so on and so forth. So that's definitely changed because previously I think there were a few people, when the club got promoted, they were happy the club got promoted, but the moment they stopped playing, then they didn't really care as such. Certain people anyway. But now I think it's a good place to be, a good place to work, and you know that if you can step out to the training field, if you're not 100%, you could get shown up due to the quality that we have at the club now.
Does it have a psychological impact if you go to a training ground that's a bit tired and old and?
At the start, it just caught me off guard because I'd never actually left Man City before on a permanent basis. And then I walked in, and then I walked through the front doors of the time machine into what was the 1980s training ground. So it caught me out a little bit, but thankfully it's a lot better now.
Okay, thanks very much for that, John. Alan, what's your next question, please?
If we should go up, there have to be massive changes in the squad again. How are your feelings on this, and how does this continuous change affect dressing room morale?
I think there would have to be changes more so because a lot of players are out of contract this summer. But I think hopefully if we do go up, a lot of those players will sign on and play for longer because they've done well for the club this year. But changes and new players coming in, I think it's hard, especially the longer you've been at a place, because you just start to settle and the club starts to create its own culture. And then if you bring in, say, 10, 11 new players, then it loses its identity a little bit. But I think we have a nucleus of a squad that could last for a few years, say with people like Charlie Austin, Matty Phillips and so on. These are young players who, many years down the line, I'm sure they'll be doing fantastically for the football club, would have been there for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, which is, for me, what you need to be a successful side and be a successful football club. So, lots of changes can affect things a little bit, but as I say, people like myself, I've been here getting on 2.5 years now, and there'll be a few others who will be in my sort of boat, so we can tell people, no matter who comes in, this is what the club is like, and it's not a case of new people coming in and trying to create it themselves, because we have our own culture, and this is how you have to be if you want to fit in.
I suppose it takes time for that culture to be created, especially if there is a turnover of players. It's almost impossible to create that.
Yeah, most definitely. Like I'm quite a sociable person and stuff, but I found it hard in the first year because you come in and you don't want to be too loud, you don't want to be too shy. You're trying to fit into something, but then also in that first 6 months, all it was about is the battle to not be relegated. So you don't really see, you can't really be yourself as such. But when things settle down and people have been here for a longer period of time, you get to see what it's all about, what football's all about.
Okay, and Heather, over to you. What's your next question, please?
Okay, so I was reading up and found out that you've got 3 A's at A level, which is quite impressive. I wish I'd done that well myself. So keeping with that, who would you say is the least intelligent player in the squad?
This is controversial. You're talking about least intelligent in terms of could go to school and would come out of school with nothing gained, or would step out onto the road and get hit by a car? What type of intelligence are you talking about?
Just in general, who's not particularly smart?
Overall, I think due to the amount of grief that he gets, I think Danny Simpson's quite stupid. Well, I didn't tell you that. This is just what I've heard. You know, I just sit around and people tend to say he's quite daft. Charlie Austin isn't a genius, where he gets away with it because he doesn't really put it out there too much, but just little things every so often. No. But I think overall, with Danny Simpson, because you know he's quite loud, and he's not really saying a lot, but he's kind of digging a hole for himself without realizing, which is another sign of a lack of, I wouldn't say intelligence, but just common sense. I think he's the one.
That would have been my prediction, I think. That was going to be my prediction.
Oh, we've got something going on here, you know. We've got something going on.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much for that one, Heather. John, back to you. What's your next question for Nedum, please?
So the next question for me is, Nedum, who inspired you as a kid when you were just a lad?
I'd have to say it would be my parents, to be honest with you, because I don't know if many people know this, but I wasn't born in England. I was born in Nigeria, and I came over here when I was 5 years old, and my parents basically gave everything to myself. And at the time, like, two of my three sisters, like, they'd be working two jobs. My dad would come back from one job at 6 in the morning, go to the next one at 8 in the morning and stuff. And you know, it inspired us because you saw how hard they were working, and the stuff that they were giving to us, it wasn't like it was everything anyway. It wasn't like they were working hard to keep us in a 5-bedroom palace. They were working hard to keep us in a 2 up, 2 down. And basically it showed to me and to my sisters as well that, you know, you have to work hard to try and achieve anything, because otherwise, if they hadn't done what they did, I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had, even though they weren't great opportunities at the time. You know, you really appreciate the little things more due to the amount that they had to sacrifice just to get us into school or for us to be fair. So yeah, definitely have to say my parents.
Footballers are often accused of living in a bubble because of that upbringing. Do you think that's helped you to never be in that bubble?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And I think when I was younger as well, although like I had talent and I was doing well with whatever I was doing, because I used to do athletics as well, and I think I was like 4th or 3rd or 2nd, I think I was, in the 100 metres under 15s in the country, and whatever, I was doing really, really well. The fact remained, if I didn't do my homework the day before the thing, I wasn't allowed to take part in anything. So it sort of puts you in a place whereby you have to retain a sense of perspective and realise that other things outside of football are just as important, if not more important. And these are the things that allow you to do the things that you love. So yeah, I certainly don't live in any bubble anyway.
Right, so is my sound working now?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, 2 seconds. Yeah, we've played quite a few different formations recently in the back four, and we haven't kept a clean sheet in the last 6 games, which is obviously, compared to the start of the season, it's kind of gone a bit downhill. What would you personally put that down to, the changes in the back four, or is it just other factors?
I don't know, that's a good question. I think going into any game, no matter what formation you have and whichever personnel, there's not always going to be a guarantee that you're not going to concede anyway. Even if, say, if they went at the back four and everyone played to 100% of their abilities, you know, it's not a guarantee that you'll have a clean sheet anyway. But as I say, I think over the past few games, we've actually scored a few more goals as well. And, you know, although you can base a team around clean sheets and so on and so forth, I believe, from my side anyway, even though I'm a defender, I'd rather be in a side that's going to outscore the opposition than, say, a side where you know you might concede or you probably won't concede, because it makes a difference then. If you ever go 1-0 down, you have the confidence to believe that you can score 2 goals. You go 2-0 down, you've got confidence you can score 3 goals. So maybe it's a slightly more attacking philosophy as such that's led to us conceding more. As I say, I think we're definitely scoring more as a consequence.
Yeah, it does seem that, like you say, earlier in the season, while we were conceding less, at the other end we weren't scoring as many. It does seem there's almost a shift in approach to try to score more, but in doing so you're going to be more open. Yeah,
it certainly seems that way sometimes, you know, when the other teams are on the break and so on. But then also this is the time of season where more or less everybody's got something to play for. So there's a different level of intensity, and, you know, when if a team has to score a goal in the last 15 minutes of the game, they're going to literally throw everything at you. Instead of, say, in January time, a team might need to score a goal, but then they know they've got a game in 4 days' time anyway. But this is it now, everything's on a countdown, so it's twice as important.
Yeah. Okay, well, a perfect example, I suppose, our final 2 games, Millwall and Barnsley, who both will be...
They're going to be very lively encounters, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks for that, Heather. John, what's your next question for Nedum, please?
So my next question is around manners, because footballers aren't always known for being well-mannered, and even talking to you right now, it's pretty clear that you are. So the question I have is, how important do you think your demeanor is as a footballer and having good manners and being polite and engaging?
I think, for me personally, I think it's very important, but I think that goes beyond football anyway. I think that's just a general society and behavioural thing, as it was to say, because you want to treat people the way that you'd like to be treated also, and at the end of the day, we are all the same people, so it's common courtesy to treat people in such a way. I don't believe I'm better than anybody else regardless of whatever I do, whether it's on the field or off the field, so I think that tends to be the way that I approach things, and a lot of other players are like that, and these are the people, say, like I appreciate him in professional football, but David Silva, who plays for Manchester City, as you know, he's a brilliant footballer. He's won the World Cup, he's won the European Championship. But to speak to him, I'll never forget, to speak to him, he was like he'd never done any of the above, and he was as normal comes. And that, for me, was humbling, because he is someone who could have an attitude because he was so great, essentially, in his profession. But he wasn't. So if he is at the very top and he's like this, then there's no reason for anyone else below him to get ahead of himself. So that's the way I always try and do.
Okay, and Jason Park as well. When you see what revolves around him, particularly over in pre-season in Asia, it's incredible. He had to literally stay in his hotel room and only come out for training or meals because he couldn't go anywhere. And yet he's the quietest, most humble man you'd ever meet.
It's, as I say, sometimes I can be as starstruck as the next person by some people who've achieved everything that I'd want to achieve in my career. But then to talk to them, they're just as humble as the average man on the street. I think that's incredible. It's Jason Park. I completely forgot about him. What a guy he is. Yeah.
Okay, Alan, back to you. Any more questions for Nedum?
Yeah, one for the players. Have you started training on penalties yet?
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because should I call it a dream or a nightmare? I was thinking, actually, I probably need to start working on these penalties, because it could definitely happen. I think, because you said that, tomorrow I'm going to get Ruffy, I'm going to call him out, I'm going to start taking some pens against him, because I think...
Are you good at it? Are you good at it?
I've never actually taken one in a big game. So obviously I'm going to be brilliant, but I've never actually had the chance to yet. So I'll practice just to make sure I'm just as good as I believe I am.
And we'll just skip Heather for the moment, just because, John, I know your next question is related to that. So if you just go on to John firstly. John, your next question?
Well, the question I had was, would you take one? Would you choose to take one?
Would I choose to take a penalty?
Would you put your hand up or go and see if 5 hands go up before yours?
Do you know what? With this, I'll tell a story. How many people know this story? But it's not directly representative of where I am now, because this was 5 years ago. But with the England under-21s, we went to Sweden to play in the championships, and we practiced penalties throughout the summer before the event. So much so that Stuart Pearce then had a list of all the players and the order that he wanted them to take the penalties, and also where they should take the penalties to, because he had it on a card where he scored, where he missed, and where he didn't. We did it every day for like a month. And the time came, and we were playing against Sweden in the semis, and we went to penalties. And due to a series of unfortunate events, I was actually number 10 to take penalties. I'd scored a few, but other people were just exceptional. They'd always scored their penalties in training and stuff. So unfortunately, I was number 10.
So was it only the goalkeeper who was after you?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, was I 10? I tell you, I was 11. And I remember Michael Richards was 10, but we had a man sent off, so we both went up a level, and it went like 3-3, 4-4. It was like 5-0, and I remember Michael Richards turning to me at number 10, him at number 9. Please, can we swap? He said. Yeah. It's just what it's come to. The two last penalty takers who was that worried about taking pens. So I suppose I'll stick my hand up ahead of Michael Richards. But aside from that, I just need to be up there.
Okay, well, I'm sure that's instilled confidence, hasn't it? Okay.
You didn't get to me. You got to the final. Everything was fine.
That's what matters. Do you actually? Is there anything to be gained? I know you see Charlie Austin, Joey Barton regularly practice penalties. When it's someone who doesn't normally take a penalty, who may be in that situation if the semi-final was to go to a playoff. If the semi-final was to go to a penalty shootout, is there a great benefit from practicing? Because I suppose the moment is very different to the training.
I think having thought about it, I suppose it's like shooting and things like that. If you can't expect to just be good at something, although you can have some small skills that be related to the event itself, you will essentially have to practice it. It's like people that are good at free kicks, they don't just all of a sudden become good at free kicks. So I think you do it, and you definitely get more confidence out of it, because I'm sure it's a very nerve-wracking moment. The last thing you need going into a penalty is like being underprepared.
Yeah.
When you go walking up there, forgetting how to put your left foot before you right and so on. Looking at the goal, it looks massive.
Yeah.
But if you've been in the situation before, I'm sure you'll be all right.
Okay, and back to you, Heather. What's your final question for Nedum?
Final question. Who would be your player of the season? Because for me personally, it's going to have to be Clint Hill.
Okay.
I've seen online, most people, it's Austin Barton. It's going to be a close call from what I've seen. And I'd put you and Austin in close competition if it wasn't for the injuries. So I've gone for Clint because he's just been solid all season. I mean, he's missed a few games, but other than that, he's just been himself, as he has been the past 3-4 seasons.
Yeah.
But who would you personally vote for?
I think Clint's done very well, and since I've been here, it has been the Clint Hill Award. But if someone else was to get it, I think, given the fact that Charlie didn't score in the first 6 games of his season here, and then he ended up being top scorer and scoring every single game, and the 1-0 Charlie Austin is a song. I think that was very, very impressive. I think Joey's done well as well, especially considering he said last season there's no way he's going to be playing in the Championship for QPR. But he's ended up doing it. That was good.
Never saw that.
Did you not? All right. I'm sure people told him about it. But for me personally, I would say I think I would go with Charlie, because I like defenders doing well and so on and so forth. But if the strikers aren't scoring goals and you're not winning games, so for me, I'd say him, especially because for me personally, this is a step up for him. Although those aren't Burnley were or are in the Championship right now, I think the quality of play that we have here is different to it. Whereas like at Burnley, sort of made the change into scoring goals that he has done. So many important ones of that. I think he's the player of the season for me.
Okay, excellent. Okay, just before we go, Alan, get your player of the season. Who's your player of the season, Alan?
I have to say Rob Green. Especially in last autumn when I was in England watching 3 games, he kept us in the games many times, especially in Yeovil, which we all thought would be an easy run-off. So Rob Green for me, definitely.
Okay, and John, we've had Charlie Austin mentioned, we've had Clint Hill mentioned, we've had Rob Green there mentioned. Who would be your player of the season?
Well, part of me wishes I could have said Onyewu. That didn't work out. I mean, I'd have to say Clint. I just and that's probably also just from the momentum from the last few seasons as well. And Nedum, you've done fantastic too. I don't like to vote. I don't vote.
No, just don't vote. Don't vote. Vote for me if you do vote, but don't vote.
Okay, listen, that pretty much concludes our Google Hangout. Thanks to Alan Clove from Norway, Heather Tull from Oxford, and John Michael Ryan, Mr. America himself, for joining us as well. Thanks to you guys, and especially thanks to Nedum. Nedum, thanks for your time over the course of the last half hour or so. Stay tuned, we'll be bringing you another Google Hangout before the season ends. Thanks for joining us.